Hey all, Dwarflord here. I have been tanking for a pretty long time, about 4 years now. This is my tank guide. I'm going to share a lot of stuff with you and I hope it helps. I personally have done about 200 Naxes on my warriors alone and even more from Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, AQ40. I've had the joy of raiding with the same guild for the last 3 years. We have progressed and improved and we now hold the #1 all-time best clear time in Nax for North America with a time of 47 minutes and 8 seconds. I definitely know a thing or two about tanking, although do not claim to be the best. If I miss something important, please include it in the comments below. It's definitely worth noting that good judgment comes from bad judgment. Tanking is all about holding threat, staying alive, and having proper positioning. You will not learn this all right away. It takes reps, muscle memory, quick taunt reflexes, and you will mess up. At some point while tanking, you will mess something up. You'll forget your Oni cloak. You'll be in the wrong gear. I've seen it 100 times. It's going to happen. You mess up. You will wipe a raid. It's not a maybe, it's a definite. So there's the pressure of tanking, absolutely. But with experience, you can carry a raid. You can be that warrior if you want to be. We're going to start with the basics of tanking. In my last tank guide, a lot of longtime warriors told me, in private of course, that they did not know about some of these basics. So we're going to start with the basics. It's very important to know the basics. We need to have that strong foundation so you understand what is going on when you're tanking. I hastily deleted my previous tank guide due to leaking some sensitive information. So here I'm putting another 24 hours or so of time, no joke, into making this video. So I hope that you find this to be of use because it takes a long time to do these kind of videos. After the basics of tanking, we're going to go over different gear selection for BIS warriors, gearing up a new warrior, talents, consumes, macros, boss by boss strategies, and more. I hope you learn a lot from this guide. It took a long time to make. Okay. Now we're talking about threat. So how is threat generated? For every 1 damage you do, that is 1 threat. 100 damage, 100 threat. However, there are threat modifiers. So if you are a warrior DPS in battle stance, berserker stance, if you're a rogue, if you're a cat druid, you have a threat modifier where 80% of the damage you do is threat. So basically 100 damage is 80 threat. Now, a mage, based on their talents, they could be 70%. And then warrior in defensive stance is 130%. Then you have your talent, defiance, which increases threat by 15%. Now, that's not 130 plus 15. That is 15% multiplied by 130%. It's not additive, it's multiplicative. Therefore, it's 149.5% modifier for threat. It's important to understand that while damage is on a 1-to-1 ratio, healing is like a 25% ratio. So if you heal 100, that's 25 threat. So healers need to be careful to not heal or buff during a pull because that can cause threat before a warrior even hits anything. Then of course, people blame the tank like, oh, you didn't pick it up. Always blame the healer if you can, or a hunter. Yeah. Now I'm going to give you some threat values here for different abilities. These threat values are at 100%. So if you were to use these abilities in Berserker stance, they would do 20% less. If you're going to do them in defensive stance, it would be 30% more. If you're going to do them in defensive stance with defiance, it would be 49.5% more. You get the point. So these are like the base numbers. Sunder armor. Sundering is very important because it's going to reduce the boss's armor and allow you and other people to do more damage to that. Sunder does 260 threat. If it's modified by defensive stance with defiance, it'd be 378. It's good threat for low gear levels. Heroic Strike is not on the GCD. This is like a spammable ability that you just use as often as your attack hits. Fast weapons are going to make you do more heroic strikes. Heroic strike is an awesome threat generating ability. What it does is 157 damage additional to your normal melee attack, and it also generates a high amount of threat. What is that number? That's 175. So it's basically doing your normal damage plus 157 plus 175. And if it crits, that's amazing. So with talents, heroic strike is 12 to 15 rage. I find usually when you're main tanking, because you're generating rage from how much damage you do, but also how much damage you're taking. Quite often you have almost unlimited rage with world buffs, but not always the case. So we'll talk about talents later. Sunder is a GCD, heroic strike is off the GCD. Other GCDs abilities is revenge. Revenge does 355 threat, plus it does like 70 to 80 damage. And if you have tier 3, we'll just double check real quick here. Tier 3 will increase the damage of revenge by an additional 75. So if you're using that two-piece tier 3 bonus, revenge, for the measly cost of 5 rage, you always hit revenge. It's huge threat. And revenge is only used after a block or dodge or parry, so that's why dodge is so awesome. It allows you to proc revenge. But of course, we want to use bloodthirst before the revenge, because we have a couple seconds when we proc a revenge. If you proc a revenge, but you have a bloodthirst available, you're going to bloodthirst, then you're going to revenge, while heroic striking, and then sunder. So the rotation is basically going to be bloodthirst, revenge. Those are your 2 buttons. And then once those are on cooldown, you're going to be using your GCD for hitting sunder and heroic strike. And then when an ability comes up again, whether it's revenge or bloodthirst, you're going to hit that, then go back to using GCDs on sunder. Now, there is a different ability that you can use instead of sunder that is on the GCD, and that is Battle Shout. So now we're going to talk about Battle Shout tanking. By the way, Bloodthirst, a world buffed tank, is going to do like 1,000 to 1,500 damage Bloodthirsts. When they're hitting hard and critting and all that stuff. And so modify that by the threat. That's a lot of threat. A Bloodthirst crit could be like 2,000 threat. So Bloodthirst is your best threat generator per rage. Anyways, Battle Shout, what that does is it's going to generate 70 threat per friendly target affected by the Battle Shout. So if you have 5 people in the party, that's going to be 350 threat. What if there's a hunter pet or a warlock pet? 420, 490 if you're hitting 7 targets. So now, and keep in mind that's going to be further modified by defensive stance and everything. It's going to do more threat. You could do 350 threat with a battle shout, whereas it's 260 with a sunder. So when a rogue uses improved exposed armor, you cannot sunder because it's going to say there's a more powerful spell active. So you can't sunder. You have to battle shout tank. But keep in mind, the threat generated by battle shout is going to affect all targets. So if you're tanking 1 mob, it's going to affect that target. But if there's 2 bosses, the battle shout threat will get split from 2 or 3 mobs. So it's a single target tank spell usually. But when you're running into a group and you get that first little bit of body threat, right? You're on the hate threat. You're on the threat table. You're on the hate meter, but no one's done anything. It's always good to cast a battle shout or a blood rage. These things cause threat because when you generate rage, it generates threat. Let's talk about that right now. If someone drinks a mana potion, a rage potion, uses an ability that makes them generate rage, that's going to cause threat. So If you gain 100 mana, that's 50 threat. If you gain 50 rage or energy, that's 250 threat. So, using a mighty rage potion, it'll generate some threat. Using blood rage, it'll use some threat. But you got to be on the threat table. You got to have that body threat, right? When you're walking in and they're targeting you, but no one's done anything. It's always good for the tank to do that. Instead of someone else pull, they have all that initial hate. It's not any threat, but they're all targeting that person. Disarm is 104 threat. Demo Shout is 43 threat per mob, for your information. And the pièce de résistance, Thunder Fury. How much threat does Thunder Fury do? Well, to the main target, each proc is 300 damage, and that would get further modified by, 80%, 130, 149.5, whatever. The nature reduction threat that hits 5 targets is 149 threat, and the movement speed reduction is 92 threat. So it does some AoE threat generation as well with a Thunder Fury proc. So let's say we want to change who has threat. Well, taunt is going to do that. There are bosses that we need to have a taunt rotation, okay? So basically, what taunt does is it's going to basically give you the same threat amount of who you're taunting off. So you could have 0 threat, but the person tanking the monster has 10,000 threat. You taunt off. Now you both have the 10,000 threat, and that mob's going to focus you for 3 seconds. That's the duration of the taunt. After the taunt is done, that duration is over, whoever has the most threat is going to be tanking it. So if they're taunting off you and you don't want to tank it anymore, because that's the mechanic, you might want to stop attacking just in case you get a big crit, boom, boom, and they get, parry, parry, and now you rip it back. Some bosses are immune to taunt. Now, that's a taunt. Then there is fixate. Fixate is going to make it focus you for a certain amount of time. For example, Mocking Blow, I think, is 5 seconds. Mocking Blow will make the mob go back to the previous target. It's not a taunt. People use Mocking Blow on 4 horsemen, and it confuses the other person. The other person leaves the 4 horsemen, and then the Mocking Blow fades, and now the 4 horsemen mob is running through the raid because it was not taunted. You have to taunt to take threat. Mocking Blow is just a temporary thing. If you have a taunt resist, you can switch stances and do a mock. Of course, if you're a Fury Prot, you'll lose all your rage, so you need to have a blood rage available to generate the threat, or hope that as you switch stances, you get, an auto attack, generate some rage. Mocking Blow is only 5 rage. AoE Shout, Challenging Shout, is also a fixate, except it's a multi-target fixate, not a taunt. So even though we say, okay, who's got an AoE taunt? It's not a taunt, it's a fixate. And if you're doing an AoE taunt, you might want to use a lip prior to the taunt. So if you lip, that's going to make the thing targeting you not hit you anymore. But if you then do a fixate, it will target you. So if you lip, shout, lip, taunt, you can taunt something while taking no damage. So you can use a lip and then taunt Resuvius and take no damage while that lip is active. But then you'll probably die after unless someone else can lip taunt. So I hope the taunting versus fixates makes sense. Bop will make you not have any threat. It's good to have a cancelaura bop in some abilities. We'll go over macros in a little bit. For someone to pull threat in melee range, they need to pass you by 110%. Okay? So let's say you have 1,000 threat. They would need to probably do 1,100 or so to pass you. Now for a range character, they need to be at 130% of your threat to pull aggro and have the mob running. But if they're at 120%, that mage, and then you pull the boss onto them, or they blink in or something, now they will pull threat simply because they went to melee range. So let's talk about glancing blows. So when you're attacking with your normal auto attack swings, your white hits, fighting a boss, which is counted as your level +3, so level 63, you have a 40% chance that your normal hit is going to glance. It's not going to be a very successful hit, and it's going to do reduced damage. So different private servers and different servers have had different math, but it's going to be roughly reduced by 35% damage. So not as strong of a hit. Now, as you get more weapon skill, that penalty is going to go down. However, we cannot change the frequency of the glancing blow happening. So against a boss, 40% of your white attacks will be glancing blows. Now, when you have world buffs and you're able to spam Heroic Strike, now you're always going to be hitting your main hand with a yellow attack, and it's just the offhands that would have the chance to glance. So basically, if we get to 5% weapon skill, now the reduction in damage is only 15%. Again, 40% of the time it's going to happen. At 5%, our hit cap of 9 now goes to 6. So weapon skill is fantastic for making us not need as much hit. So if you have 5 weapon skill from your race, such as being a human or an orc, or you're using something like Edge Masters, or we'll go over a couple different ways you can increase your weapon skill. If you're a race that doesn't have weapon skill, like I play a dwarf, then you're only going to need 6% hit. Going much past 8 weapon skill doesn't really help, but it's not a big deal if you do. So if you're able to hit 8% weapon skill, now your glancing blows that happen 40% of the time against the boss are only going to be reduced in damage by 5%. So they're almost doing their full damage. Now, if you're fighting something that's level 62, I believe the glancing blows happen 30% of the time. If it's level 61, the glancing blows happen 20% of the time. And if it's level 60, your level, I think they only happen around 10% of the time, give or take. So let me show you what I do on my warrior here for glancing blows. So I have Edge Masters. So if I'm DPSing with my Gressel and King's Fall, Edge Masters grants me one-hand weapon, axe, sword, dagger skill. I can also tank with my daggers, and I have aged core leather gloves, which gives me 5, and then I also have +3. So that gives me that 8% soft cap, which is awesome. Finally, my main warrior has THC, which is +6. So 6 weapon skill on a dwarf, pretty darn good. Not quite exactly, like a human. A human plus THC, you're laughing, but still, anyways, warriors can still get their weapon skill regardless of race. There's dagger belt. There's a dagger helmet from a world boss. There's a dagger offhand with weapon skill. So you can get different dagger skill for your tanking. Or if you use Edge Masters. Other important stats that you want as a tank is strength, agility, stamina. Critical strike is still good, but having a helmet that has agility instead of critical strike is good, because the agility is going to get affected by King's or ZG buff, and 20 agility is not only 1% crit, but also 1% dodge. Let's talk about your defensive cooldowns as a warrior. You have, hopefully, at one point you'll get your life-giving gem, last stand, and you have shield wall. Now, what shield wall does is it's going to reduce the damage taken by 75%. If you're at a very low amount of health, shield wall is not a great oh shit button. Shield wall is better used when you have a decent amount of health, and then you can basically survive. Yes, can shield wall help you at low health? It could save you, but let's say you're at 1,000 health and you're about to take an attack that's like 6,000 damage. It's gonna reduce that attack to like 1,500. You're still gonna die. And so better oh shit button is going to be last stand typically, because it heals you and increases your health pool. Shield wall, yes, it can be a bit of an oh shit button, but I like to use it as more of a, okay, I'm going to shield wall here because the raid's taking a lot of damage. I'm getting hit hard. Here, let me shield wall so that you can focus on healing the raid too, and I'm not going to need as many heals. It's more of like a preventative thing with some foresight, and then last stand and life-giving gems like, whoa, I almost died. Of course, you also have health, like a tuber or a health stone as well, but it's easy to sometimes forget those things. Let's talk about defense. So defense, per 1 point, it's going to add 0.04 block, dodge, parry, as well as chance for the mob attacking you to miss. Or you can think of it that 25 defense is going to give you 1% block, dodge, parry, and chance to be missed. The so-called 440 defense cap, it's really not worth going for. You'd sacrifice too much. And when you have world buffs and flask and all this stuff, we don't need a ton of defense. We want some, don't get me wrong, we want to have some mitigation and avoidance. Mitigation is your armor, avoidance is the block, dodge, parry. Let's talk about block, dodge, and parry. Block sucks. When you block an attack, it's going to reduce that damage taken by like 1 or 200. So if you're getting hit by 3,000 or 7,000 attack, reducing that by a couple hundred is not very good. A parry is going to make you take no damage from that attack. But it has a really cool effect where, let's say the defender, I'm the defender, I parry your attack, ting! What that's going to do is make it so that my next attack is going to happen 40% sooner. Or let's say we've got a swing timer. When I parry attack, it's going to boom, it's going to go down 40%. If I parry another attack, boom, it's going to go down. That's important as a tank to understand parry hasting. You want to turn the boss so that only you're attacking from the front. And melee need to hold their dicks for a second, because if they all parry, ting, 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 the boss can push you into the ground. Because the boss, we'll go over some boss swing timers in a little bit. If the boss has a slow swing timer, that boss, instead of going like, that boss might, from the parries of your melee DPS, your warriors and rogues, might go and just pummel you into the ground. All right, there he is, a thing of beauty. Let's look at the gear. But first, consumes. So Mongoose, increased agility and crit, Juju power, fire water, elixir of defense and fortitude can be used, but sometimes you do run into some buff cap issues if you have too many consumes and world buffs. You can use an alcohol for stamina, strength food or a stamina food, dark desire for hit chance, and defense food if you want. Sharpening stones are good. Supplementary consumes are like stone shield for increasing your armor, which is awesome. It's going to increase your armor by a lot, make you take less damage. Mighty Rage potion, free action potion, all that kind of stuff. Who do we have here? It's Germanicus. Let's wave at him. Get away, Germanicus. You're out of mana, my dude. I hope your Sheen is gonna work. Oh! You don't win them all, Germanicus. That pesky rocket hum, huh? Alright. Everyone, go check out Germanicus's YouTube channel. All right, so as a tank, it's very important to be able to swap your weapons on the fly. You need to go to a shield, you need to get back to dual wielding. But if you have a heroic strike queued, you will not be able to switch weapons. I remember doing a raid and someone's like, oh, I couldn't put my shield on, I don't know why. So my macro is stop casting. This will stop the heroic strike. Then I have equip slot 16, the Hunger and Cold, equip slot 17, Thunder Fury, equip slot 17, Face of Death. That allows me to switch back and forth just like that. I also have other abilities bound. So for example, if we're in defensive stance, let me find my Revenge macro. Show tooltip Revenge, cast Revenge, start attack, cancelaura, Blessing of Salvation, Holy Power, Regrowth, Armor of Faith, Greater Blessing of Salvation, Blessing of Protection. These are like buffs that you don't want in the case of Bop or Salve. And Holy Power doesn't really help you very much. It's a little bit of armor, but it's issue with the buff cap. I've also got my Bloodthirst macro. This one's just start attack, cast Bloodthirst, but I could definitely actually have a second one here. Yeah, this is it. This is my second Bloodthirst macro. I could put another cancelaura in here of something, but we have Blessing of the Claw, Prayer of Shadow, Argent Dawn Commission. Actually, I can remove that line because I have a weak aura that does that, so I don't need that. Cancel Arcane Intellect, just to remove these lines for now. But yeah, there's that one. Just make sure I have that proper one. If we look at the Heroic Strike, start attack is in my Heroic Strike. We have cancelaura Bloodthirst. So that means that little 20 health per hit you get. We remove that. Prayer of Spirit, Arcane Brilliance, Divine Spirit. We just get rid of these extra stuff that we don't need. And then finally, where's my Sunder? Start attack, cast Sunder. This also removes Bop, Arcane Brilliance. Static Barrier is what you get after using your Gigaflux helmet. There's other things you could potentially cancel, but this is what I'm canceling here. So those are my my macros. Those are the macros that I use. You have a buff cap of 32, and if you get more than that, you're gonna lose. You lose a mongoose, or you lose a this or that. Now I have some awesome weak auras. I'll share Zippy's taunt monitor. So if a druid or a warrior taunts, it lets me know if it's successful or a fail. We also have I have a stone shield thing, so I know when I have stone shield. What else is a good one? Armor debuffs. This just lets me know, if we're missing Sunder, Curse of Wreck, something like that. Pop 'em tank announce. It just lets you know, if you do a AoE shout, life-giving gem, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of useful things here. I have a battle shout tracker. Obviously want to know when you have battle shout. I've got a swing timer, cancel Argent Dawn, challenging tracker up here. We've got this lets me know when I have Crusader procs, what trinket's getting used. So if I pop Kiss the Spider, it shows that I have Kiss there. I also have a cooldown tracker for if I use Blood Rage or something like that, it's going to, if I Death Wish, it's going to show that it's active, and then it shows the cooldown. I have a UI video coming out. I use the rage bar add-on / it's called Nug Energy. If I have rage, it shows up. Let's see if there's any other useful weak auras. My consumes weak aura, I'll share that in the description. But I do have a UI video coming out. I have a sapper and dense dynamite thing that lets me know when that's available. If fapped or lipped, actually that might be a PvP one. What else? Fear ward lets me know when I have fear ward. And this is my range checker. It puts a dot on me. maexxxna shield warning. What else? Nameplate, debuff, taunt, and sunders is a good one. Yeah, so I'll share some of these weak auras with you. It makes our life a lot easier. I have a weak aura that says what stance I'm in. Time to kill is good. Anyways, a lot of great weak auras. It's tough to be a Fury Prot warrior with 0 talent points placed. So how are you going to do this? Well, you need protection points. But the deep protection points are going to prevent you from the high threat value of Fury. So, first tier, shield specialization or adaptation. Well, for 5 whopping talent points, anticipation is definitely not as strong as getting 5% crit. But shield specialization is just bad. Blocking is kind of poopy. And you're not even wearing a shield that often. So we're going to go to anticipation because that's always going to be effective. It always gives you a little bit of block, a little bit of dodge, a little bit of parry. We want last stand, so we got to do improved blood rage. Now, obviously iron will, like stun resist, but improve armor. We're definitely going to do 3 points there. Last stand and defiance. We don't want to worry about improved taunt. Improve Sunder armor. We know that Sunder's, it's okay, but not that good. Improve taunt, it's really not needed. Let's move on. Unbridled Wrath. Although if you're an off tank, you would instead take improved Demo Shout and not Unbridled Wrath. An off tank might also take Piercing Howl, but we want improved Battle Shout because if you're going to Battle Shout, you need to have 5 points in it. Enrage, Dual Specialization, Death Wish, Flurry, Bloodthirst. Final 3 points. Some people will say, I want to max out toughness so that every time I get hit, I take a little less damage. I personally like to just go all the way into deflection for that parry. So when I parry, guaranteed I stop that damage. Some people say, I'll live on the edge. I want to pump threat and I'm going to go improve heroic strike. They're all valid options. You know, maybe we're going to do 1 heroic strike and the rest in there. Okay, so let's talk about tanking. I have all the items in the game. We're going to talk about all the different item sets you might use. And later on, I'll tell you what bosses you might use those item sets for. There's no, this is the best, you know, item set. There's so many items. I'm going to show you like 8 different rings. You can only use 2 at a time. There's a lot of different items. There's a lot of items that are very similar and comparable. So let's get into it. This is the best gear that you could possibly use. And then we have, I'm going to show you like pre-raid BIS starter gear. That would be fine for Molten Core, maybe even Blackwing Lair. So let's start with the helmet. After I talk about each specific slot and what the items are all about, then I'm going to show you the sets I use, and we'll just quickly go over those now that you're familiar with every single item. So helmets. Dreadnought helmet, tier 3, very tanky, right? Strength, stamina, dodge, defense, no crit, no agility. pure tankiness. Now we have tier 2.5. This is more of a hybrid, right? We still have some defense, and we have agility giving us dodge, but it has less stamina, but more strength. So it's a bit of the best of both worlds, but sometimes you need that stamina and the avoidance that helmet gives you. Then we have two helmets that are very similar. In fact, the next three helmets, like the tier 2.5, the rank helm, and the Helm of Endless Rage, they're all very similar. By the way, I have two Helm of Endless Rage, one with the tank enchant, one with the strength enchant. So if I want to be super aggressive with my tanking, I'm going to use Helm of Endless Rage because it's got what we want, strength, agi, stamina, but nothing else. Similar to these helmets is the Ranker Helm. 28 strength, 34 stamina, 1 crit. So Ranker Helm, by the way, the 20 stamina is BIS. If you can get rank 13 or 12 and get some sort of ranker set, BIS, IMO. So now we have 34 stamina, similar to the 34 stamina on the tier 2.5 helmet, but instead of the agility and the mitigation, the avoidance that the defense gives you, now we just have 1% crit. So we're giving up some dodge and parry by using this helmet, and we're just being purely aggressive, but we still get that 20 stamina bonus. And so it is a good option. Now let's talk about necklace. So I'm going to put this back on. We're going to take the necklace off just to get our necklaces all in a row here. So in terms of necklaces for tanking, we have a couple options. I actually don't have the Cthulhu neck, but the Cthulhu neck is a high mitt neck. I have the Master Dragon Slayer neck instead of the Cthulhu neck for that big stamina, agility, defense. So this is my mitigation neck, and we'll talk about mitigation pieces in a bit. But then I also have my Sadist Collar, which is my like all-around high stamina, but also crit and attack power neck. And then I've got, if I really want to be super high threat, my Storm Rage, where we get a little more attack power, a little more crit, less stamina. I would probably never really tank with Barb Choker. The only shoulders I use are the rank 13 shoulders. They just look the best. They have a couple less like strength and agility, but more stamina than the tier 2.5 shoulders, and they just look amazing. I have them enchanted with the Saffron enchant because the stamina enchant from Saffron, honestly, like 16 stamina versus 26 attack power, 1% crit. Like you get so much out of this enchant. Pauldrons of the Unrelenting are your BIS mitigation shoulders. Defense, dodge, huge stamina, coupled with the stamina enchant there. For cloaks, I have Cloak of the Golden Hive. I actually don't have the Cthulhu quest cloak because this cloak gives me stamina, agility, strength, 1% dodge, defense. If I want like a hybrid cloak, I use Cloak of the Golden Hive. And if I want to be super aggressive, I use Shrouded Dominion. The Cthulhu quest cloak is good, but the bag space, every time I have the opportunity to get it, I'm like, nah, I'm fine. For chests, tier 2.5 chests, you've got a ton of stamina, agility, strength, the defense for that, avoidance. It's just an all-around amazing chest. But sometimes you might say, you know what? I just need more tankiness, and you're going to use your tier 3 sometimes. Risk Guards of Vengeance is your like threat piece. Some people use Hive Defilers because of the agility for that dodge. They say, you know what? I'd rather have 1% dodge than 10 stamina because 10 stamina is not that much. And the agility, dodge. So you could use Hive Defilers even as a tank for a threat piece. Otherwise, you're going to use Dreadnought. Gauntlets of Annihilation, huge threat piece. Right? Strength, stamina, not a lot of stamina, hit, crit. with the 15 agility enchant. Otherwise, you're going to use your Gauntlets of Steadfast Determination. Gauntlets of Wrath is another decent mitigation piece. So Steadfast Determination gives you a lot of threat options, but also a lot of nice mitigation. Girdle of the Mentor, huge for the agility that it gives you. Just a fantastic all-around Girdle of the Mentor is an amazing belt, right? Strength, stamina, agility, everything you want, plus the hit and the crit. If you need a really tanky belt, Royal Karachi belt, the best you can get. Strength, agi, stamina with parry, defense, amazing. For the legs, currently I will tend to use the Marshal's legs with the shoulders for that 2-piece. It's going to give you strength and stamina, and then you're going to get a lot of crit plus hit. But the Conqueror's tier 2.5 legs, amazing, right? Strength, agi, stamina, hit, defense, amazing. Then we've got Chromies, but if I'm going to be using my tier 2.5 legs over the Chromies, I'll use my Marshal's boots for the movement speed. So typically, if I'm world buffed, I'll use Chromies, and then if I don't have world buffs, I'll use the Marshal's for that movement speed. Of course, we have tier 3 boots for the big stamina dodge. Rings, we have a lot of option for rings. I'm just going to take my rings off and get my rings all in a row. So sometimes getting the 2-piece bonus for tier 3 is nice because you can get more damage on your revenge. It's more threat. So if you can manage it using like the bracers and the ring, it's an option. Huge stamina dodge defense. Nice tanky ring. Every warrior wants it. Ring of the Godslayer. Stamina and agility, amazing. Steven wants to ERP. I'm filming. Bro. We gotta love Steven. So Ring of the Godslayer. Agility, stamina, beautiful. Conversely, flip the stats. You've got your lower agility, high stamina. Band of Unnatural Forces. Horde are almost never going to take this ring off for tanking. They're crazy, but they need that threat. Ring of Emperor Veclor. Some armor, agility, stamina, and defense. Definitely a bear druid tank ring, but even for warriors, that 9 defense, amazing. Very, very big for avoidance. Band of Ikuria. If you need the hit, and when you get more gear, you no longer need Band of Ikuria. I almost never use Band of Ikuria ever anymore. But it's a great ring. Circle of Applied Force. This is a ring you're like almost never going to take off. For threat, strength, agi, stamina, everything you want. Quick Strike Ring. You could use this in some aggressive pieces. Don Julio's band. It's like a baby Band of Unnatural Forces that has stamina. You could absolutely use this at times. Totally. Trinkets. Woo! Anytime you think you might need a oh shit button, life-giving gem for a hard-hitting boss like Broodlord Lashslayer, there's certain bosses, yeah, you probably want to keep this thing on. Other times, you know, I see, like if I'm not going to use life-giving gem, I'll probably use DFT and Kiss the Spider. And if Kiss the Spider goes on cooldown, I'll put Slayer's Crest on just to keep pumping threat on different trinkets. If I'm in Undead, I'm going to use Mark of the Champion and Kiss the Spider and just keep those on, you know. THC main hand, it's the highest DPS weapon in the game, right? Well, I guess Gressel's 73.1. But THC, main hand, Thunder Fury offhand. If you don't have Thunder Fury, you could do like THC main hand, and then you could offhand like Gressel or something. Soul String, but if you want to use Dragon Breath Hand Cannon, that's another option. So now let me talk to you about the different sets I have. So if I want to use 4-piece tier 3, I have an item rack set, by the way. Item rack opt. I recommend you use item rack. How I use this is, so I've got all my different sets. How I use this is I have buttons over here that are macros. What the macro looks like is, so if we go to say slash script toggle set parentheses quotes tank quote parentheses colon. That's the macro that if I want my tank gear on, here's my full mitt, I do that. But you can use item rack, like mini map button or something. That's just how I change my gear around. So let me go over my full mitt gear. Tier 3, Master Dragon Slayers, Pauldron the Unrelenting, Golden Hive, Tier 3, THC, Face of Death, Dragon Breath Hand Cannon. What I would actually probably do here is put DFT on. Stormpike Insignia, Arkham Tyros, Dreadnought. We could also do Emperor Veclor, a little less stamina, but more avoidance. So this is my huge avoidance set. Tier 3, Leg Plates of Wrath with 2% dodge, or sorry, 1% dodge enchant, Royal Karaju Belt, and Steadfast Determination. If we look at my mitigation here, this is unbuffed, 25.48 dodge. I'm like Neo in the Matrix. Or, you know, actually no, who's Mr. Smith, who's all dodge and all that stuff. Block, doesn't really matter. And then we go to parry, and I've got 10.68 parry. When I'm world buff, my dodge will go up even more, and I can be getting so many dodges and parries. My other set here, we're gonna go to, I call it my like DPS HP set. So if I was going to be potentially tanking with full world buffs just for a short period of time, I might tank in this set. I might tank in this very aggressive set when I know I have a healer who can just pump me. Just absolutely pump me. I'll use essentially DPS gear just to tank some trash, like in Spiderwing. I'm only going to be tanking it for a few seconds. It's like taunt and it dies. In a full world buff pumper group, I would use this. But I might also say, you know what? I'm going to put my unbound threat set on. My unbound threat set, it gives me a little bit more stamina, a little bit more dodge pieces. So on my unbound threat set, you can see the difference. We now put on Circle of Applied Force, Ring of the God Slayer, Cloak of the Golden Hive instead of Shroud of Dominion, and that's about the only changes we make. Sometimes I might say, you know what, I want to use this, but I'm not going to unboon, and I'll just do this. I'll just change these two pieces. I might even do this. I should actually make a set with these changes, because it's just faster, but I've run out of room. I want to maybe use the OP add-on and make a keybind, and it puts a action bar ring around my mouse, so I could just do like, you know, say pick a keybind. It might be like Alt J, something weird like that, and right at my mouse it's going to, I'm pointing, and you're like, what are you pointing at? Pointing at my monitor. Woo. And around it would be all of my gear swap macros. When I get around to configuring OPIE add-on, I might do that. For now, I just don't have that set. I don't want to ramble too much longer, but this is like a kind of threat DPS set. Sometimes I tank with my Gressel. Other times I go for the, you know, it really depends. If I'm world buffed in a pug and they're not world buffed, I'll just use Gress and I'll just pump and I'll be like the top DPS while tanking. Then finally, this is my my 4-piece set. If I need something that's, you could call this sort of partial mitt. I would call this a partial mitt set. It's basically threat pieces with some tier 3. It's basically a partial mitt. Partial mitt, full mitt, aggressive set. This is an aggressive set right here. So we'll talk about what sets for each boss we would do. Lastly, let's talk about Diamond Flask set. So a Diamond Flask set might look something like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to... Did Steven just learn how to fish? Wow. What you're going to do is put your flask set on. And then you're going to ask for a power infusion, because that's going to increase your flask set. You can also enchant with mana oil these weapons, and you're going to use your flask set. Then you're going to switch to whatever set you're going to use. I can click my flask set button again, and it puts on what I was previously wearing. And now you can see I'm getting healed for 1,342 from a Diamond Flask. And if I have Power Infusion, I'll be healed by even more. So that's a really strong thing to do. Now let's really quickly look at one more option for tanking. And that is Dagger Warrior. So let's check out Dagger Warrior here. Because when I was talking about weapon skill, like, let's just not forget, Dagger Warriors are totally respectable tanks. Totally respectable tanks. We got a load screen here. Okay, here we go. So what I might use for dagger tanking is just all the other normal pieces you might consider wearing. All the different rings, whatever you want to wear. You know, you can switch it around however you want to switch it around. H-core leather gloves, Death Sting, King's Fall. That's all I will say about Dagger Warrior. Is you can use H-core leather gloves and daggers, and you will do a fantastic job. Now, you are wearing a leather piece, but that's okay. You can main tank. I've main tanked freaking Saffron with this leather piece. It's okay. It's not that big a deal. About what I use for fire resist, I actually use kind of like aggressive pieces for fire resist. I use the Crown of Destruction with the fire resist enchant. It's a mail piece. If you're using a stone shield, it's okay. Basically, stone shield. Use a stone shield potion. Oni neck for fire resist. You can use Wrath chest for 10% fire resist, or if you're lucky enough to get the chest from Ubers, which I actually don't have, that's got more fire resist. It's like strength, agility, stamina, fire resist. Maybe I should run Ubers. Emberweave leggings. Don't sleep on these. Huge fire resist. Yes, it's a mail piece, but if you use a stone shield, I think you're okay. Obviously, you want to use your Oni cloak against the dragons. That's basically what I use for fire resist. I'm not going to use more pieces. I might use the Wrath boots, depending. I might use Wrath boots sometimes. Because you're going to have probably the Pally aura. And if you have the buff from Ubers, when I'm in raid with the Druid buff, I can get near 300 fire resist. It's fine. This is what I use for fire resist. Now, I of course realize that I'm showing you my BIS gear on warriors that I've been playing for years. But there's some really awesome gear that you can acquire. And so I'm going to show you a setup that I think I would be able to get fairly easily. And this is just one of many options. There's a lot of different slots we could put, or items we can put in these slots. And in a couple weeks, you could have a character like this. And honestly, in 4 weeks, you could be like full tier 2.5, because tier 2.5 is amazing and actually pretty easy to get. Low competition on that gear these days, though the idols are somewhat expensive. So we're starting with Helm of Wrath. Obviously, you need Oni attunement, but if Oni drops his helmet, bada bing, bada boom. Executioner's helmet in Strathalome. Trying to think if there's a ZG helmet that's played. I don't think so. Oni Tooth Pendant. You kill the boss, maybe you get both helmet and neck. This necklace, you could tank Kel'Thuzad with this neck. This comes from ZG, the blood-soaked pauldrons. They're like mini Drake Talon pauldrons. They've got strength, agility, stamina, as you know, is what a Fury Prot tank wants. And defense to boot. Then we've got the Zulian Tigerhide Cloak. You're going to need hit, and it's got agility, stamina. There's a lot of other cloaks you could use as well. There's cloaks from Molten Core, etc. ZG Chest, it's basically a baby tier 2.5. It's basically a baby tier 2.5 chest. You do need Revered, which is quite a few ZG runs. But if you have the gold for the coins or the BJUs to smash, yeah, you can get that rep pretty easy. Bracers of Might. Just a BOE. Warblade of the Hikari. Obviously, you need both sets to get the weapon skill, but Cancelaura is a really easy one. Mara's Song, offhand, if you have the human weapon skill. If you want to be daggers, you know, I showed you that distracting dagger, and you can get Alterac Valley Exalted, get Lobotomizer and Distracting Dagger, and tank Molten Core. Maybe Blackwing Lair with world buffs. Gauntlets of Might drops all the time off the first boss, and usually no one needs it. ZG Belt, again, these are super easy to get. Blood-soaked pauldrons, if Hakar drops them, probably no one wants them. Saffron Scale Boots, there's other boots as well. You know, Boots of Might. Yeah, very easy to get this stuff. AV Ring, Band of Jinn, Hodge, Blackhand's Breath, Diamond Flask, Black Crow, or the Farad's Crossbow, which is from the ZG AQ20 quest. So, you look badass, and this gear's not that tough to get. With world buffs, I could tank AQ40 in this gear with world buffs. With world buffs. All right, so we're going to start here with Veilistras. This is a fight where you need to do a lot of threat. I usually wear higher threat gear. I like to pop a stone shield. You could do an MRP. I also get an improved lay on hands when I'm on Alliance. Get an improved lay on hands from a pally. So what I'm going to do is pop Wreck and Kiss the Spider. Go to defensive stance, Blood Rage, Death Wish. Ideally, so that you have your first GCD ready to Bloodthirst the boss. Sometimes a little bit slow. But you just want to pump that threat. You can see the standard rotation that I'm doing. It's just spamming Heroic Strike. You have unlimited rage. Heroic Strike, Sunder, Revenge, Bloodthirst. Ideally, you're going to kill this boss before you get Burning Adrenaline, which the tank is going to get the third Burning Adrenaline. If the group is low DPS, you need another tank to pick it up. Broodlord, you know, this is Blackwing Lair. So you can tank this in Molten Core gear. You'd have to. You can tank it in tier 2 gear. I sometimes wear a little bit more mitt, but you also need to contend with the threat because you are going to have a threat reduction. He reduces your threat by 50% every now and then. So I almost die right there. I almost die. And so you can see I'm wearing some tier 3. I'm kind of wearing partial mitt here. It's a hard-hitting boss. You definitely want a stone shield. I pop Death Wish for extra threat on pull with life-giving gem in tandem. So Firemaw, all of these next 3 drakes have the thrash ability where if they're not hitting something for a little while, they might build up charges and just wombo combo one-shot you when they finally get to you. So I always, when I pull them, I stay with them. You can see how I got the boss in position here. I basically pull it through the doorway and then I pull it back through. If you ever have to reposition the boss, do it after a breath. Hold it in a goofy position, wait for the shadow flame, then reposition the boss. Because sometimes tanks get knocked around on this fight. Obviously, you're wearing fire resist gear. I like to pop a stone shield. I wear a shield the majority of the fight because once the DPS leave and they get too many stacks, like your threat's fine. So I might dual wield for a little bit and then just wear a shield the whole time. Since it is a fairly healing intensive fight. There's a shadow flame. We're waiting for the wing buffet any day now. Iggy says, I learned a lot about tanking from Iggy. Anyways, after the wing buffet, it goes back on me. And so tanks usually taunt the off tanks. They stand, you can see where that guy is dead. Taunt with a shield if you're an off tank, it hits hard. But you taunt about, like he would come into taunt right now, around 7 or so seconds. Now sometimes there's a resist, and if there's a resist, you can do a mock and a challenging, but remember those are fixates and not taunts. So we're gonna get Ebon Rock here. I like to get a pre-shield on me. I can usually get a bow shot off. Anyways, we're gonna be pulling back, trying not to have distance between myself and the boss, so he doesn't build up those thrash charges. And because there's a lot of taunting here, I will often wear a shield a lot of the time. Because if you taunt, these drakes can hit hard. And if the healers are kind of like slow to react to you, I like to wear a shield quite often. I'm dual wielding right now, but yeah. Basically, you can see that debuff on me. When the dragon hits me and I have that debuff, he heals for 25,000 per hit. So that's what we're taunting off here with this fight. I usually have the main tank where I am with Star, and then the off tanks both stand perpendicular. You could also have an off tank in the corner. This is a fight where sometimes the tanks get knocked around and boss moves kind of crazy like this. If that's the case, we're going to kind of straighten him out. The breath happened, and so I pulled him along the wall. You see how I pulled him there and I got him back in position once the breath was out. I'm not going to move him in any capacity if he hasn't done a breath. And I sometimes spin bosses for fun when I know they're not going to breathe on people most of the time. Just because it's this thing I do. I learned it from Iggy. It's like a superstitious thing. It's mostly a joke. I say, oh, it's going to make good items drop. Then we're going to grab this dude. Same deal. I just pull it back. Once it's in position, I'll go to dual wield. But basically, very easy fight here. You just need the hunters to trank. Other than that, it's pretty much tank and spank. And I included this clip because the druid, he's not taunting the wing buffet. So this is basically me showing you how to single tank this fight. Normally you'd have someone taunt off, but you're going to see here, he's not really going to taunt, and the wing buffet's going to go on me. And what you need to do is the second the wing buffet goes on you, you taunt. So watch, I'm going to taunt here because he's not taunting. So as he casts it on me, I taunt because the guy's not taunting. Cro-Mag. By the way, if the wing buffet tank on the previous boss doesn't taunt, as long as they're second threat, it is okay. They can just become the main tank. But yeah, anyways, Cro-Mag here. He's pretty easy. Similar positioning to Firemaw, where you are just in invisibility. You're in line of sight of the healers, but the healers are not in line of sight of the boss, so they don't get hit by the breaths. They can heal you the whole time. You can see how I changed my camera angle here. The healers are basically along the wall there, and they're able to heal me. Now, sometimes this boss gets out of position, so we're going to show you how to position this boss, because otherwise it's pretty much a tank and spank. The only time someone's going to pull aggro is at the very beginning, if there's a crazy vulnerability or something and a giant ignite. They just have to hold their dick. I'm going to show you how. I call it walking the dog because, you know, Cro-Mag's, I guess, a big dragon dog. So there's going to be a time lapse. With time lapse, it's going to go on whoever's the highest threat that time lapse didn't hit. So the off tank, for example, would want to run out of line of sight. But anyways, it went on the mage because they were a higher threat. And so now we're just getting the boss back in position here. Again, once you have good threat, like I just put a shield on for this fight. You can wear higher mitt. You can. I included this. This is like the worst opening you could ever have. I'm about to get in position for the boss, and I get mind controlled. It burns my Death Wish and my Last Stand. That's kind of troll. Don't forget your cloak on this fight, obviously, and the three dragons, little dragons. So anyways, here we are. Probably pop Kiss here soon for some extra threat gen, increase the attack speed. This group doesn't have a priest, so I'll be showing you how to stance dance, which is important to know how to do on this fight. So what I'm waiting for is the cast bar for Bellowing Roar. So the second I see, I'm going to be going to, by the way, worse luck, Zerker stance, or I should say Warrior Call, while I don't have Last Stand. And so that was an easy fear because I was forced into Zerker stance. But we're going to get Warrior Call to end here in a second. And you can see how we have that warrior on the other side. He's second highest threat. You always want to have the second highest threat warrior on the other side of the boss. In case there's a mage call, in case, you know, I die, I get sheeped, whatever. If I stop having threat, if I get bopped, who knows? See, the off tank got sheeped, but you know, I could get sheeped here and it would have blasted the rage. So anyways, that's how you stance dance. We're in AQ 40 now. This boss doesn't even hit that hard. The main thing is kicking the spells, tanks standing where they need to stand. Sometimes you might want to put a shield on or go Zerker stance and help kick, whatever the case may be. Because really these bosses don't hit hard. They only hit hard on random people when there's not a tank on them. So that's the most important thing of a tank here, is to be engaging the mob. Because if they are not being tanked, they just blast with earth shocks really hard. So yeah, your gear is not that important on this fight. It's not a hard hitting fight. You can wear higher threat gear, whatever. It's a tauntable boss. It's pretty easy. It's just all about killing the fake ones, or else it's going to be a wipe. Yeah. So anyways, on to the next boss. With this boss, whatever you do, do not kill them first. When you kill them, it enrages the other bugs. So in this case, we're going to kill Kree, Yauj, and then them, so none of the bugs enrage. But if you really wanted to kill Yauj or Kree last, you would kill them in the middle. So you only enrage one of the final bugs. Does that make sense? You don't want to kill them first, ever. Kree hits hard. He has a thrash mechanic. Like he'll do like multiple hits really hard. Definitely stone shield. Obviously don't stand in the poison when he dies. You want rogues kicking Yauj. And when Yauj dies, bugs are going to spawn. So you want someone to taunt those. AoE taunt them. And you got to be pretty quick on it. So let's see. Do we get a taunt here? We do. Or we will. 2 people actually taunt it, if I recall. So we get that taunt. That was almost too slow. They almost spread out too far and the taunt wouldn't have gotten them. But you don't want to taunt too early either. Sometimes people taunt before they even come out. So don't do that. Them loses threat and jumps around a little bit. So it's good to get a taunt rotation going. You can see we're kind of getting one there. Easy. All right, so for Battle Guard Sartura, the main thing is taunting, being able to taunt, get a good taunt rotation. So we get the off tanks. On the little ones, main tank on the big one. It's a good fight for a life-giving gem. Tanks can get hit hard. Definitely want a stone shield here, probably. So you're going to pull the boss away. Definitely want it away from the squishies. Now, the second that this boss starts spinning, you need to be ready with a taunt. If you have 4-piece, not a bad idea in case of taunt resists. But obviously, this is you know, this can be cleared in Blackwing layer gear. So you can see the taunt rotation. Normally, what I do is, you know, it's tank 1, tank 2, tank 3, tank 4. You can use a mock, you can use challenging show, you can use target dummy, anything to keep the boss in place. And then once the boss stops spinning, we want to get those stuns. So it's going to start spinning again. I get the first taunt, then, you know, next person's going to follow up. You can see the taunt tracker there in the bottom right. Another taunt, another, it's a growl, and then, you know, melee, get out, pop evasion, or pop a lip. This is such a joke of a fight unless your DPS is so low. I've only one time almost wiped on this fight, and it was like a couple months ago. The DPS was so low, it was kind of crazy. Because the Thankrus doesn't even really hit that hard, and yeah, there is the threat of getting too high of a stack. The boss does like a stacking mortal strike, 10% healing reduction per stack, but the boss doesn't even hit that hard. It's really the worms that come. So if you take a while to kill the boss, sometimes I just I pop world buffs. I got Squawk. I'm actually tanking this in full fury this entire raid. If I have world buffs, I'll tank in full fury. It's no problem, because most other people are not going to have world buffs, so I can do it, no problem. But if I'm not going to have world buffs, I go Fury Prot for sure. I've main tanked an axe as full fury when the Fury Prots died. Make sure we get Hodges on these dudes, and it's an easy clap. Viscidus on Alliance, a lot of people skip this, but anyways, the boss can hit pretty hard. You might want to wear some heavier mitt. Most of the DPS are going to be using blue frost weapons or rank 1 frost bolt, so it's not that big of a deal. When the boss comes back together, the boss does a lot of, or healers can easily get threat from all the healing they were doing in the previous phase. So that's a good time to, pop Death Wish. Sapper, Death Wish, and maybe even do a life-giving gem, because life-giving gem will generate some threat, some snap threat. The main thing is looking for like poison on the ground and keeping the boss in a safe spot for the melee. Jump and sapper. I didn't hit that many. Anyways, we got it back. We freeze it again, and then we're done. The boss has to be, it's either below 5 or 10%. Like, if you're gonna shatter it, it has to be on the second shatter. It has to be, I think it's below 10%, might be 5. So yeah, got a poison, so we move it. And it's about to shatter, or at least freeze and then shatter. And that's all there is to it. On Alliance, we use the sacks from Lower Blackrock Spire. Battle Guard, or I always get this mixed up. Princess Huron. So I use a diamond flask. You can see I popped it. I had a power infusion. I used my diamond flask set for big healing, because this is a fight we're going to try and zerg down. So pretty much, let's see. We just started the fight, and I've got 40 seconds on the diamond flask or whatever there. As a dwarf, I can stone form, and I do that during the enrage usually. Or I'm going to pop it right here probably, because I got poison there. Rather than making a healer cleanse me, just pop that. Only cleanse the tank, never a DPS. 50% here. I'm got a good threat lead. I'll put a shield on soon, I'm pretty sure. And then I'm going to definitely shield wall. There's the shield. I use life-giving gem right now. And then here's the berserk, the enrage. I'm going to shield wall so that healers can just focus the raid and hopefully minimize the amount of deaths, as we had a couple deaths there. But yeah, there we go. So Twin Emps. Twin Emps is a fight of positioning between the main tank and the warlock tank. Or I should say the melee tank and the warlock tank. Because you got 2 tanks here. 1 on each side of each warlock, and you get what I'm saying. I like to battle shout or blood rage as the boss is running at me, because sometimes it runs towards the warlock or a healer or something, if there's healing threat. So just gets that initial threat, but I want to be in the line of where it's going to run. So you don't want like the boss to beeline to someone else and you're like and you lose it. That's happened to me like once or twice before. So anyways, it's a pretty hard-hitting boss. I usually wear at least some tier 3. Even though I could do this in tier 2.5, it's AQ40. You can do this in Blackwing Lair. But if you have better gear, maybe wear it, because you never know on this fight when things are going to hit the fan, and you can hold threat in higher mid gear on this fight because you get that initial 2000 threat. So right now it's the caster boss. I am the closest, and so you're going to see on the threat meter, I'm going to get an initial 2000 tick, right? See, I got 2000 threat because I was the closest. If a healer was the closest, they would have 2000 threat and they would probably die. Now what I'm going to show you here is how to single warlock tank it. So right now I'm tanking the melee guy, but now it's the caster guy. And now you see, well, where's the warlock? I'm tanking the caster. I am battle shout spamming. And I'm also telling the I used life-giving gem because this guy hitting hard. I don't have any shadow resist gear. But I'm telling the mages, like, don't attack, only attack a little bit. Now you can see Sovereign starts to get the threat. So now Sovereign takes over, and Sovereign with square behind me has the threat. And now it switches. Now Sovereign's running back. Sovereign is running back. And I'm going to change the camera angle in a second here. And you're going to see in the distance, now Sovereign, where Sovereign is standing, he's kind of like not going in the normal Warlock spot because he has to travel back and forth. And he just got aggro. And now he's tanking the caster. So Uro, don't run on a mount or you'll get knocked back. So you just go in on foot. I usually am going to pop a trinket on pull and then Death Wish on the second time I lose threat. So basically, this boss is going to do a Sandblast, and that's going to knock my threat completely gone. So I have threat right now, sweeps and knocks me away. I'm Sandblasted. You can see I'm spinning, and then the other tank needs to move it in position. Every warrior needs to be wearing tanky gear on this fight. If you're wearing a Lionheart, you might die because the goal is that we kill this boss before we run out of tanks, because the tanks they get knocked down and they got to build themselves back up. So I'm popping Death Wish, and Truck has the threat, so he's been the third tank. Now I'm using Death Wish to pump my threat. You can see I'm just behind Truck, and I know it's going to go on me when Truck gets the Sandblast. But when tanks get knocked back, melee do need to be careful that they're not the only one hitting the boss. If all the tanks get knocked away, then it's going to attack the highest threat in range. So if the tank is out of range, melee can get sometimes gibbed. So they got to be careful to not just run back in when they get swept away. So here I am. I'm the fourth tank. I was the first and then the fourth. We had two other tanks in between, and the boss is about to die. So that's good. But had we run out of tanks, then it starts ping-ponging DPS. You don't have to. You could get a pre-shield and a GNPP. I often like to Diamond Flask on the run-in because not only is it like a DPS trinket that I can use for the first phase, it heals me on the way in a little bit. So I'm going to get a Diamond Flask, or I should say a Power Infusion, and I'm going to Diamond Flask on the way in. Honestly, this fight, there's not really much to tank. I usually wear almost DPS gear, especially if I have world buffs. Like, there's nothing to tank. So I'm going to run in. I should get a pre-shield, but I don't. So anyways, I run in, and I just say, guys, follow me 5 seconds later, and I tell them when to go in. No one should be pressing buttons here. As the main tank, or whoever's running in, you want to go to the far side. So my position is here. You wouldn't want to be, say, where circle is, because then, you know, you're getting beamed and people are going to be around you. They're going to chain the beam. So yeah, that's basically the fight, you know. I could make a whole other video on Cthulhu itself, but so before we jump into the boss by boss strategy for an axe, this is an amazing chart to look at. It really lets you know what kind of gear do I want to wear for this boss. Which bosses are scary, which bosses are a pushover and don't do that much damage. So what this chart does is it looks at the attack speed of the boss, which is really important to know. And then it looks at what is their average melee damage. And then it multiplies those and gives you the damage taken per second. So, Thane, Gothic, Zeliek, Blamo. When you tank these bosses, you're going to be like, you know what? They don't actually hit that hard. Quite often, because the Four Horsemen, they have a bit of a threat drop every mark. Even though they are tauntable, sometimes a DPS warrior ends up tanking Thane for a little bit because people often are trying to burn Thane, do a lot of damage, and even a DPS warrior in like leather gear can survive some hits from Thane. Thane's a bit of a pushover. Gothic, usually not too scary, but sometimes can do a lot of damage with the melees plus the shadow bolt stuff that Gothic does. Again, Zealot is not too hard. Blamo. Mograine usually doesn't hit too hard, but can have bursts of harder hitting. So Mograine actually can be a little bit scary. Grobbulus, typically as a tank, I'm not worried about like getting hit too hard. It's important to not just look at the number here, but also consider the fact that during Grobbulus, no one is taking damage except for the tank, other than a couple instances when the slime is up for a short period of time. So who the heck are you going to heal other than the tank? So not only is Grobbulus not a terribly hard-hitting boss, there's not much else to heal. Noth, not the hardest hitting, but it's important to consider their average melee and not just the damage taken per second, because Noth actually has a pretty slow attack speed. So check this out. Noth, any boss with a slow attack speed, be very careful with. Noth has a 2.5 second attack speed and does have an average melee hit that is pretty hard. But because they attack slow, the damage taken isn't that bad. You know, it's spiky damage. Spike. But if you get parry hasted, remember how parry hasting works. Now, instead of every 2.5 seconds, Noth could go and you're dead. And the reason that parry hasting happens quite often with Noth is the threat reset, and then suddenly everyone's still going DPSing, but the boss turns and faces them, or right on the pull. maexxna, same thing, very dangerous parry haste boss. Faralina, 2.5. These are somewhat scary bosses. maexxna, Faralina. Huygen, not too scary, but I mean, you can get parry hasted with Huygen. It's literally the same damage profile as maexxna, etc. But maexxna has an enrage. There's other people getting healed. Usually with Huygen, it's not too healing intensive. But what can happen is you get the plague. People don't like how I say plague, but it reduces your health by 50%, and suddenly he can like one-shot you if it doesn't get cleansed quickly. KT doesn't hit terribly hard, but he's always getting parried because there's going to be you and 4 other people attacking him from the front. His frostbolts hit hard, so if that frostbolt doesn't get kicked, like, you could die really easily. And there's so many other people taking damage on KT, so that's why sometimes he's a little bit scary. Stalag and Fugen are some of the hardest hitting bosses in the game here. You can see that their average hit is much higher than anyone else. So the damage taken per second is a nice curve. But what we really need to look at is also the attack speed of the boss and what their actual damage is. Loatheb, for example, is a boss that Like it says the damage taken per second is really high, but if you have a lot of dodge, you can actually Loatheb is kind of chill. Like you're gonna see in the video, I hardly need any heals, even though the damage taken per second is really high. Loatheb, it's pretty chill. maexxna during a rage, wear a shield. Stalag at times is nasty. Fairlina should never enrage, but if she does, you're gonna have to shield wall. Gluth, it can be very dangerous. Gluth can be like, oh, this dog's not that bad. Hey boy, here, hey doggy, and then boom. Plus there's the healing reduction. Then of course there's patchwork during enrage. But patchwork, just in general, patchwork hits hard. Patchwork hits hard. So I think this is just a really awesome chart to kind of look at how often the boss hits and how hard they hit for. Now let's get into the boss by boss strategies. Okay, so with Inubricon, you need 3 tanks here. You're gonna turn it away from the raid usually, but some people will face it towards the raid. You can see that ad gets loose. The ads are tauntable, but the boss is not. What you want to do ideally is tank the ads inside the hitbox of the boss so you can cleave. You know, that ad's just running all over the place. Sometimes it happens. So the positioning is not ideal here. You would want it to be like a goose's foot, like a number 3 sort of, where the ads are kind of like not quite perpendicular, but anyways. You want to save your potion cooldown for swiftness potion here. This boss doesn't hit terribly hard. You can wear, you know, like tier 3 and such, but you could wear tier 2.5. Kind of, you gotta always feel it out with the raid. Anyways, once the ads are dead, you're gonna start pulling it over. You could use either side as long as the raid knows what side you're gonna be kiting on. And once Locust Swarm starts casting, I'm ready to. I've got my camera angle ready, and because you never know when it's gonna happen. Right now, it's available to happen, but it hasn't happened. And it starts casting the second I see the cast bar start. You know, I pop that swiftness potion, kind of get stuck on the wall there. But obviously, you don't want to go in the green goo. Do not go in the green goo. That'll reduce your health. You might take a couple ticks of the Locust Swarm, but then the Pallies or whoever, you know, they can heal you up. And that's basically the fight. Off tanks might need to pick up ads, like the little bugs, but also in the middle of the fight, 1 ad spawns. So for Fairlina, she can hit hard. She can hit really hard. Parry hasting is a big problem, a big concern. So DPS really should focus Skull and X first. So those are the followers. I think it's the cultists. Those are used by priests to mind control. So you're gonna focus on killing the Skull and X first. They can get stacked on the boss and cleave down. Other than that, you're gonna kite safely away from the rain of fire, and make sure you don't go too far away from the other tanks who are holding the ads, because those need to get mind controlled. And mind control has a certain range. So if you mind control an ad and then you are really far away from that mind control priest and they're walking that ad towards the boss, if that ad gets too far away, mind control drops, and then mind control creates a lot of threat. And while the ads are tauntable, it might kill the priest. So you just want to make sure that you keep the boss near the priest and the ads. So with maexxxna, we're going to run in. This is a boss that often parry hastes. This boss has an enrage at 30%. This is going to be a bit of a spicy kill, which is actually kind of good to see. So people are on the wall right now. We have to heal and kill the people on the wall. And there's going to be little spiders coming out shortly, so the off tanks can do an AoE taunt, sapper, AoE them down. Right now the web spray is going to go out, so make sure you have a shield for this because everyone's going to get stunned. You need to get hotted up, druid hots, poison abolish, because right now I'm poisoned. The poison's gone, it reduces healing. And you need to survive this without any heals on Horde. On Alliance, we often cheese it. And we'll have a Paladin DI a Priest. And then they take a Soul Stone. So now you have 2 people healing during that phase. Now, the boss is at 32%, and I'm saying stop DPS, because another web spray is coming out. I use Last Stand, and I'm like, where's the heals? There was no DI. The DI didn't go out. I went down to 1% health. Like, I'm spamming my life-giving gem. And I popped shield wall there just because it was getting a little hectic. Normally it should not be like that. Noth, another boss where people love to parry haste the tanks down. This boss can hit hard. He's mostly a tank and spank, but he does teleport away, and that's an aggro drop. I don't believe it's going to happen on this clip because we are killing him so fast. Ads do come, but sometimes you can kill him before the ads drop as well. So with Hygen, the dance boss, you need to move him to 4 different sections. So you see where the poison just erupted, and so you have a pretty deep. I honestly I should pull him a little bit further. No one gets hit there, but we were on the edge. So you use the poison eruption to know where to go. So I see where it just erupted, and I know to go into that because that's the border where it's going to erupt. Moving can be a little bit goofy on this boss. Anyways, we kill it fast and we don't get to the other dance phase. This is a fight to use your diamond flask on. So I have my diamond flask set. I have a much better set nowadays, but that was my current set. So I get a power infusion, pop diamond flask. I've got full mid on because eventually the DPS are gonna have no threat issues because their threat is gonna be 0% when they get their spore. So I do dual wield for a second at the start. Now near the boss name there, you can see healers names and their cooldown. So far only 1 priest has healed me, and you're gonna see I'm getting about a 1700 heal tick, and I'm dodging. I'm not taking a lot of damage because of my diamond flask and my huge mitigation set. I've still only received 1 heal, and the boss is around like almost 50% health, or no, 60 some odd. I've received a second heal. So this is the power of diamond flask. Now my diamond flask is worn off. It lasts for a minute. My diamond flask is worn off. but I've still only received, I think there's a 4th heal. Like, so Diamond Flask really trivializes this fight. If this fight's going really poorly, if the tank is taking a lot of damage, sometimes you run out of heals. You know, it's like, keep me up, and there's another heal, and now you have no more heals because the healers they can only heal like once every minute or whatever. But anyways, if you have a great mitigation set and Diamond Flask set, this fight is a joke. Patchwork. So that's a great example of how to not pull the boss. Or I should say, the boss was pulled perfectly, but people need to hold their dick in their pants, or whatever the saying is, until the tanks establish threat. The main tank, fairy fired. They did a perfect job. But then a DPS used a Mighty Rage Potion. And you remember at the start of the video, I said, when you use a mana potion or a rage potion or a thistle tea, it generates some threat. Now, because the warrior had no threat, it generated threat. And it generated more threat than the fairy fire. Patchwork running loose could be disastrous. And I was yelling like, tank stack, tank stack. You can rewind the footage. You're going to see the other dwarf tank. It's his first time. He's not that familiar. And he was a little slow to chase after the boss. And it's just a crazy situation. So anyways, healers, bomb the heals. Wear your mitigation gear. And hateful strikes hit the highest health pool and the number 2 and 3 threat. So the hatefuls cannot pass the main tank, or else now the main tank's going to take hatefuls, and it could be bad. I'm not going to show you the whole fight. That's basically the fight. Here is Grobbulus. So I have a nice weak aura that lets me know when the spray is open. What happens when the spray is open is the boss is going to spray with poison. Anyone hit by the poison is going to spawn an ad. So you don't want anyone except for the main tank to hit the ad. So melee just need to not be eating his asshole. You need to be out of his hitbox. So there's that ad. Now periodically he's going to drop a poison cloud. You can see right above my rage bar there, poison cloud spawning. And so I'm just waiting. There it is. It says on the screen, poison cloud. I was a little slow to move. You know, sometimes I'm paying attention to multiple things at once. Spray is open, so I'm holding them still. I'm waiting for that spray to happen. There is a poison cloud, and then there's the spray. So I know it's safe to move it. Again, I'm a little bit monka here. I should move a bit more. I'm like, oh, poison cloud. Like sometimes I'm monka. What can I say, man? But that's the fight. For Gluth, he can hit hard. We often only bring one hunter to the raid, so he enrages there and he tranks. But the next enrage, there's no trank. So usually get a threat lead and put a shield on. He does a fear. I'm going to use a Death Wish on pull like I did to generate lots of threat. But then I have a fear ward as well for any fears. So for Thaddeus, the ads hit hard. They hit hard. You want to tank them as close as you can to the edge, but not too close, because they do a knockback. Oh my gosh, the druid almost got knocked off. And there is taunt swaps. I kind of cut that out. Oh, actually, here it is. So they kind of like throw the tanks. You just want to make sure that the 2 tanks on each side are number 1 and 2 on threat. Jump at the very edge. You can use other stuff to make you go fast. Swiftness Zanza. You can use Noggin Fog or Slowfall to make yourself easily get across. So I'm on the one side. I have the raid on the other side. And there's a polarity switch. You have to check your mark. Negative, we keep on this side, and then positive on the other side. Several people die because they said, you know what? I see that I'm negative, but I'm going to stay on the positive side. And, you know, that's not very smart. So I was a little slow on my taunt. The boss went out of range there. And so basically, mages can do crazy ignite here. It's often smart to use a fetish. I don't know if this mage is doing that, but the threat is crazy. And so you can see I'm doing a taunt rotation. You see in the near my action bar on the right there. I was taunting, mocking blow, but that was a parry. Then I taunt. I'm also telling the other tanks to taunt, but they're not taunting. I need to switch. And I'm also saying right now, drop ignite. Drop the ignite, but the mage dies. You know, we bopped the mage. The mage lipped. I'm taunting. I did taunt, challenging, mocking, taunt. The other tanks didn't taunt. But the other mages, they kept on casting fire spells, even though I said drop the ignite, so they don't know what drop ignite is. On this fight, honestly, you just tank the ads, unless it's really the priests who are tanking here. This boss hits really hard and it'll kill you in 1 or 2 hits. So you just tank the ads. And then once your ad is mind controlled, you can hit the boss. You got to be ready for the mind control to drop. So there it drops, and I go mind control it. Priest almost dies. I was a little slow. We have like 4 people taunt it. And if the boss goes loose, you can use a lip and shout and hold the boss until someone gets a mind control. Because sometimes mind control drops. So lip shout can really save it. So now we're at Gothic. So I'm going to show you the live side, just a couple clips. It's a long fight of ads slowly coming out. We usually kill left to right, and we typically put a Fury Prot warrior on the far right live platform because sometimes we need to shackle. Sometimes we're getting overrun. We can shackle these ads. We can sheep these ads. You got to make sure not to have a bleed or a dot or whatever on them. But yeah, you know, ad spawn, and usually it's pretty easy. Usually pretty easy. I had forgot. I don't know if I had forgotten to use a stamina Zanza there, or if I was using a swiftness Zanza before. I probably just forgot. Sometimes I'm Monka and I forget. Then the boss spawns in the middle here, so you just grab the boss. Boss is tauntable. Sometimes he can hit sort of hard. But the off tanks can taunt off. If the main tank's about to die, you just taunt off. Then he goes over there, the new tank taunts it. And this was in a speed run, so I love how it looks when we're rockabooting all together. You know, when a raid is in unison like this. It's just beautiful. This is what tanking on the dead side looks like. So there are 5 piles. You know, the ads are, of course, tauntable. You know where the ad is going to spawn because you got the ghost sort of thing. The white, like, swirly laser ghost line. Alright, 4 horsemen. This is a long fight. This is the pinnacle of warrior tanking. Everyone needs to help out. DPS warriors too sometimes. We're going to put them into their corners. And right off the bat, a tank dies. So you have to heal the tanks. Let's watch the raid frame. I believe someone dies. Or no, they're DC'd. They're DC'd. We didn't realize the tank was DC'd, so a DPS warrior picks up Lamo. Amazing. So you pull into the corner, and we're going to kill Thane. We're going to stay in and kill Thane. Now I'm going to, now Thane is dead. We did it in 3 marks. You might do it in 4 marks. Now I'm going to go wait in the safe spot here. This is the safe spot right where I'm standing. But the tank dies, and I'm going in early. So there was a tank over here. Mage pulls threat, and I get it back. So there was a tank there. A tank relieved, and then they died early, and so I had to go in early. And now it's going to be a long time before I get relief. I'm tanking this boss, and you see Nabdru, somehow he died. The healing rotation got messed up. Nothing that Nabdru did wrong, but the healers, unfortunately, rotated wrong. And this is a tank guide, not a healer guide. But basically, there should always be 3 healers on a boss, and they rotate. 1 healer rotates every mark, which means 2 healers stay, 1 rotates. And then when the new one arrives, another one rotates. When a new one arrives, another one rotates. So there's always 3 healers at the boss. But we had somehow only 1 healer. Well, how does that happen? People went to the wrong spot. They don't know what they're doing. If a tank dies on this fight, if a tank DCs, oh man, this fight could be so bad. So difficult to recover from. So I'm going to go in on Zealot now, because I got relieved on Mograine. So now I'm going to go on Zealot. You got to be careful on this boss going in, because they can beam. Sorry, I'm yawning. It's a late night, and I early recording here. Then I got relieved there, and I leave. I leave along that wall. You see. Now I'm going to go in again. So I was relieved, and now it's been a while, and I'm going to go in again. Blamo is long dead. Zealot is the last boss. Once you get to just Zealot being alive, like if you have a couple tanks, a couple healers, and a couple DPS, you could do this with like 8 people. But preferably everyone's still alive. Melee can't go in. They could beam. You can only put like 1 or 2 melee DPS in. See how I'm along the wall there? I don't really show Blamo, but she has void zones, and you got to watch when you're tanking to not get stuck in a corner with void zones. Here's Saffron. We're running in. I've popped my diamond flask. I had a power infusion. I popped my diamond flask. I use a stone shield. I am dual wielding for a second at the start, and I'm probably going to sapper here. There's the sapper. Make sure the boss activates. One time I sappered and the boss didn't activate. It's a hard-hitting boss, but you got to generate some threat first. I'm so monka. I don't even realize that my mongoose and stuff falls, but I am popping it. Because I do have a reminder. I'm like, oh my gosh. Someone in stream chat is asking, are you wearing frost resist? You don't wear frost resist here as a tank. You could, but typically we don't. We just want to wear heavy mitigation gear. Partial mid or heavy mid. When you're tanking this boss on air phase, you might zone out and chill. You cannot chill. It's really important that you get behind a block, or else you're gonna die. It happens, man. It happens. Sometimes you're like, okay, I'm gonna then you're like, oh shit, there's not an ice block near me. I thought one would spawn. You have to watch for ice blocks. Anyways, you just rinse and repeat, and that's the fight. Blizzard could spawn on you. If it does, you gotta move back or forward. You gotta watch boss position so you don't tail whip. So I've just cut out some of the fight there, but here we go. You can use Last Stand, Life Giving. I didn't have to use it this fight. Maybe I could have. Maybe I should have. Use Shield Wall to say, hey, just heal the raid. I'm using Shield Wall. Sometimes I do that. But the healing kind of felt okay. But maybe I should have Shield Walled here. Maybe I do. I don't know. I don't remember what I do. But yeah, we had a couple of DPS die there. Phase 1 of this fight, pretty easy. You just taunt those guys that come at you. That A-bomb that was coming at you. Anyways, the tank is pulling in position. The main tank, well, I'm the main tank, but the other tank died and lost buffs. So we're having him start because there is going to be a mind control. So I'm following up threat because it's going to be complete threat drop. So your job as the off tanks is to save threat or save your bloodthirst. Now, like, I had a shitty threat opener or whatever there, and I get it back finally. But so what happened was threat drops, but there was a big ignite. And so that ignite did a big tick. Now, it's really important for boss position. You got to be on the tips of the dress. That group got frost blasted. That could have been a lot worse. That could have frozen a lot more people. So it's really important that you're on tips of the dress. The movement here gets a little bit erratic. People kind of get freaked out. You can see circles like, how do I get back in? Now there's a shadow fissure. So what I did there was I moved to the left. Usually tanks will just backpedal and move the boss. You can do that, but what if the tank groups get several shadow fissures in a row? Then you're going to be backed into a corner of the room. I prefer, and it's not always easy, but I prefer when I'm tanking to move to the left. What you have to do is just make sure, or the right, you just have to make sure you don't go into the hitbox or leave the hitbox. Like if you outrange, you're going to make the boss move in a weird way. Ads come, you shackle them, you stun them, they're tauntable. The boss is not tauntable. Anyways. Yeah, off tanks gotta pull threat on the mind control, and that's the fight. If you enjoyed the video, drop me a sub and a comment. Catch me live on my Twitch channel, Dwarflord TV, to connect with me or say hi to me in game on any of my characters. Dwarflord out.